Hello everyone, this is Mark from SineWave, and today's video I wanted to go over mobile site survey from Cradlepoint. This topic comes up quite frequently, so I thought I'd put a video out to explain how this works and how you set it up specifically. So what is mobile site survey? Mobile site survey is a SDK that is applied to your NCM or NetCloud Manager account, and then that can be applied to your routers through groups, of course. And then it will go out and sample the RF environment, whether it be cellular, or it can even do like Starlink, or even Ethernet cable for that matter. And then it will give you a report back, and it will show you the metrics of the speed test that you can run. So we can run speed tests, we don't have to, but it'll give you like your RSRP, RSRQ, SINAR, those kind of metrics for cellular, which I find it more useful on than I do Ethernet, whether that Ethernet is Starlink or copper. And then we can take that data, and it has GPS data attached to it, so we can take that and then overlay it into Google Maps, which will give you or the client a clear picture of what those cellular networks are doing. We primarily see this a lot when folks are trying to figure out which carrier to use in that particular location. So if you are a nationwide traveler, or even if you go, across, one end of the state to the other end of the state, we all know you'll see the cellular signal vary no matter where you're going. So it may not be so useful for those that are traveling everywhere. However, it is very useful for when you have a certain region that you're covering, no matter what your job may be, and you're trying to figure out, is one carrier better than the other one? And that's the carrier you want to go with, of course. And so this tool lets you look into that and see what those metrics are at a equipment level. So it's a very powerful tool. Can be used in a multitude of ways, but that's kind of primarily how we see it deployed. So we also need to understand that this is a tool, that this is not to be used, or I would recommend that this should not be used in your operational environment. What does that mean? If you have ambulances out there and you rely on this data or your data stream for whatever you're doing in the back of the ambulance, the monitors, maybe it's reaching back for those files on a patient, maybe it's pushing files, maybe it's getting information on where your route is to, like the next house you're going to. I would not use it in those applications on a live environment. It's fine to install this on a test environment, have that put in the ambulance in this case, or police department, whatever you're trying to figure out, like whichever platform you're working on, and use it there and test. Once you're done testing, you should remove the SDK, because this SDK does work, especially if you're using the speed test feature. It does work your router out very hard. Meaning, if you have a limited amount of bandwidth, it's going to try to gobble up as much as it can. So you could experience packet loss if you're using it alongside this tool. So I would highly recommend that you don't use this in an operational environment, that you would set up your own group, and we'll go over that. Set up your own group for this test, run the test, collect the data, analyze the data, and then carry out with your work. But then on the backside, you can figure out what carrier is best for you guys. So let's move on and show you how this works. So we are in NetCloud Manager. We want to go down to Tools, and we want to activate or enable SDKs. We'll simply click the Enable button. By the way, it doesn't require a special license. This works with all Cradlepoint devices. And then we also need to get the SDK. Where do we get that? So we get the SDK from the GitHub repository, Cradlepoint's GitHub repository. So if we back out here, we can go to the SDK samples. You'll see a plethora of samples. Feel free to use these. These are all free. You can modify them however you need to. But what we're interested in today is this mobile site survey. So we would want to download that. We would download this whole sample file. We then convert this into a tar file. So if you don't know how to do that, this is not exactly the tutorial. We're going to go over that with you. But if you don't know how to do that, you can reach out to us. We'll give it to you for free. It's totally free. Just let us know if you need it or not. So once you have that tar file, the MSS or mobile site survey tar file, we want to click Add SDK Application. You'll see this block here where we can move the SDK to. Just simply drag and drop. We click Upload. By the way, you have to have under 60 megs. This file is very small. It's actually below 300 kilobits. It's actually 269 kilobits with this version. And then you will see it pop up here and it'll say that it's ready, but it's not installed on any group. And there we go. So the next step, now that we have it installed on our NCM account, we need to go to groups. Let me clean this up. Sub account here. And I've already created a group. So I created a basic group. There's no other config on it. Feel free to put your own configuration on there if you have a certain IP scheme, whatever, SSID for your password, Wi-Fi passwords, that kind of thing. Mine's just blank. But here is the group I created. I'm using R980. It's not online. You see there's nothing in this group. We'll get to that here in a minute. We will click on MSS test group or the name that you named your group. Click on extensibility, SDK, assign SDK, and we will simply select the SDK that we uploaded when we were in tools. Click save, and there we go. Notice again, there's nothing installed, nothing online, and this is reflecting the routers that are in this group, right? So if there's no routers in the group, you're not going to get any data here or any digits above 0. The next step, we'll go to devices, and we will assign a router into this group. So we'll click the router we want. I'm going to select this guy here. Select move. Then we'll select the group that we had created. We'll select move. And this one will move over to that new group. You'll see this wheel here, these arrows. It's simply configuring with the new group. So it's syncing up with that group for that configuration. Okay, now once we have that, this is where we need to do two things. One, we need to create a remote connection to that SDK. So now what has happened is that group had pushed down that SDK to this particular router. So now to configure it, we need to go into the SDK's web GUI and then configure it however we want to. And I'll show you that. But to do that, we need to use Remote Connect. So we'll click Remote Connect, LAN Manager. And you see here, I've already done it, but you'll click Add, Enable LAN Manager if it's not already enabled. You click Add and add yours. And this is what it should look like. So this IP address, you can use this. This is pointing to the LAN IP. So if you're not using the default LAN IP, which on every Cradlepoint is 192.168.0.1, you can also use your own that you have on there, 10.0.0.1 or whatever your scheme is. Just know that if you're going to use this, you have to configure the device's firewall to allow primary LAN to router and router to primary LAN, or you will not make connection. What I typically do is I use a loopback. If I can type 127.0.0.1. The protocol is HTTP. The port is 8000. So we'll save that. All right, now we will continue on in the next video. We have this set up. The next steps that we want to do is configure this SDK to determine how do we want to test. The other thing is I also use 5G ready IO as a server. I'm pretty sure it's hosted by Cradlepoint. We'll dig into that as a server to send my data. Why do I do that? Is because it creates a nice clean CSV file with all my data on there that I can take and simply upload into Google Maps to provide a very clean overlay or look at our data. So we'll be back with another episode, part 2, and go over the rest of this.